Greetings Guardians, my name is Bife here. Desert Perpetual's contest mode has ended as of a few days ago. I finished the raid late last night on normal, and oh my god, it's so much harder than I thought it would be. And even on a normal clear, it's kind of crazy. I'm now also gearing up to spend my next week or so in this raid, uncovering and helping to explain all of the lore stuff that I can. As a quick reminder at the top, spoilers are present in this video, so if you want to go ahead and check out the raid for yourself, please go ahead and turn this video off and wait until you've cleared for yourself. In fact, before we start, I do need to discuss something really quickly. I talked about it at the beginning of my stream as well, but I'll talk about it here. The raid lore book has already been data mined and leaked online. I have 3 pages acquired through gameplay, but the likelihood is that the rest of the pages are acquired through playing the raid and finishing the encounter challenges. I asked my community members on socials whether I should start covering these data mined pages, and I quickly came to the conclusion that I should not. This wasn't really me asking with any kind of intent to do this, it was more of a gut check, and I'm glad that most of you all returned the exact same thoughts that I had. Stuff that's been data mined kind of counts as leaks, and I don't tend to cover leaks anymore. There was a time way back in my history when I did, but nowadays I don't think it is the right move for the channel, and so I'm not changing any of that. I'm going to uncover them naturally within the game as was intended, and I'm going to make sure my coverage of them therefore keeps all of this in mind and does not spoil anything, because the act of discovery is also a part of the game. I verified with a member of Raid Secrets that the pages were indeed data mined, and well, yeah, I'm just not going to cover them. Even though I know the link to the thing, even though I have the pages technically in my DMs, I'm just not going to read them. We're going to figure all this out when the time comes. And I feel like that's the right call as well, because it just doesn't break my own spoiler policy. I wouldn't want to go ahead and spoil you guys of something before it's discovered naturally. So, why would I do that now? I'm glad that you all returned the gut check with the same kind of emphasis. If nothing else, it means that I know where we all stand, and that's nothing but a good thing. But that's all stuff for another video. Today, I'm just going to discuss some general points about the raid and introduce you to what is easily one of Destiny's hardest ever released raids on Contest. It also has a lot of pertinent lore that helps us chart the future of the Choral Vex through some really interesting perspectives, namely those of the Conductor, the Vex within the raid, and of course, those of a copy of Maya Sundaresh and Chioma Essie. Before we get into all of this, a little bit of context is required to understand the raid. If you haven't played the Edge of Fate campaign, spoilers. Yeah, you'll want to get out of here and do that too. On the plus side, it's a great campaign, so go ahead and finish it. Today's sponsored video is brought to you with the help of Geology. To put it simply, they make skincare easy. A proper skincare routine from them takes 2 minutes out of your day, and their plans make what can otherwise be an overcomplicated process really simple. Their products produce great results, they just work, and they don't have any weird ingredients or create any extra hassle in your day. Plus, you can trust them because they're an award-winning brand with over 42 awards, and they've helped 500,000 people improve their skincare routine, so why not give them a try? What's even better is that the skincare routine can be tailored and budgeted according to your needs. They have a really handy survey on their website where you just go ahead and take 1 minute and you get a full routine that is personalized but still easy to use because their products are just that simple. You get it in simple 1, 2, 3 steps too, which is nice. The entire process is about as fuss-free as skincare gets. That's what I really like the most about them for sure. Even better, for us, they hooked us all up with another great deal. So if you want to get 100% off your personalized skincare trial set and a free gift of your choice, use my link and code BIFE100. All you have to pay for is shipping, and you get over $50 worth of skincare products for the price of it. Not to mention 1 free gift from their range of deodorants and shower care and anything else you might be interested in. Thank you again to Geology for helping make this video possible, and thank you to you for watching it and supporting the channel. The raid quest starts on Kepler. Orin tells us about the death of 3 at the hands of the Conductor, and that in the process she opened up an even bigger can of worms. The singularity at the heart of Kepler is coming from inside the remains of 3. Following it leads us to the 9 Realms, a portion of unknown space that is twisted and morphed in accordance with the strange reality of these fourth-dimensional beings, made at least a little comprehensible for us. As Maya murdered 3, she had torn apart the one being that might have been able to assist her in some manner with her goals of restoring a golden age where her wife Chioma was there. Now the flesh of 3, torn into our 3-dimensional space, has been left to rot with all of its dark matter firmly within the grasp of the Choral Vex. Maya's Vex have in fact swarmed into the anomaly with an unknown intent. Meeting with Dean Rebecca on Kepler, she made only a single request of us: follow the Vex into the sacred anomaly and do what we must: expunge them. And so we ventured out toward the remains of 3 and entered into unknown space once again. And this is where we meet the Desert Perpetual. This is the start of a series of challenges where we fight Maya's Choral Vex at every turn and undo their plans for the remains of 3 and its abundance of dark matter. This is also where we meet our guides within the raid, who display their thoughts through a series of patrol beacons and the communications that follow them. Our guides are Maya Sundaresh and Chioma Essie. Now, to be really clear, these are simulated versions of Maya and Chioma. The simulation of the latest version of Maya Sundaresh that became the conductor is not the person I am talking about here. I am referring to one of the 227 simulated copies of Maya made on Venus back in the Golden Age. There are also 227 simulated copies of Chioma Essie in the Vex network as well. 2 of these simulated copies are speaking in these moments, guiding us through the raid and giving us hints as to what the Vex intend to do, and what they're doing in each encounter. As we push deeper and deeper into this place, the 2 copies reveal more and more details, and ultimately lead us to the final conclusion of the raid, which we will get to in a bit. But I have to say, given that the Vex are a faction that doesn't have a big villain to speak to us in the same way that Rulk did, I think this makes perfect sense. The final boss of Desert Perpetual was never going to leave a soliloquy for us. This is actually an excellent way of helping us understand the Vex and their motives. We need to see it through other eyes. Maybe one day we'll hear the conductor do this for us, but for the moment, this is a good introduction to things. And I think it's actually very well done for yet again giving the Vex a bit more of a human face, but more on that later. First, we have just got to talk about the environmental design for this place, because, you know, the whole vibe of the 9 Realms and unknown space generally has always been mind-bending and surreal. The better understandings of the 9 that we now have make this space even more compelling. The 9 are 4th-dimensional beings, but they're bound to the gravity of the 9 major celestial bodies of the solar system. It's then appropriate that we can start to see a ton of planets in the sky, including those same planets of our solar system. These can be seen in the major nursery area, where you transition from encounter to encounter. In some encounters like Hobgoblin, you also see something else that's strange in the skybox, which is that this entire view recedes, and instead you see the remains of 3 again, and the singularity itself. To be brutally honest, I'm not sure why this is the case. It may be that we're briefly stepping outside of that area, and yet again we're able to see the rest of the singularity and the remains of 3 off in the distance. This is a weird realm, and I don't necessarily know if the distances that play out are all exactly as they should be. I need to go ahead and just take another look at all this, but the reality of it is, this place was always going to be surreal, and to a certain extent I think that just works for what the 9 are. All that stuff is a mystery that I will happily tackle at a later date though. I will say also, the areas are all breathtaking, and I think they deliberately do what the 9 spaces have always done, which is display the weird and unknowable nature of 4th-dimensional beings, with all the weird geometry and strange structures that we can see. However, the focus on celestial bodies, in particular spheres, demispheres, orbits, the gravity of objects being expressed across the raid, it's just some of the coolest environmental design that Bungie has ever produced. Now, to be really clear, I don't think it's as full of explicit stories as Rulk's Sunken Pyramid, where the walls were dripping with lore about his impact on the Hive and maybe the Scorn in the future, as well as the universe of Destiny at large, and he was willing to give us basically a tour of his entire story. But in a strange way, the 9 are kind of still doing that. It's just the way they see time, the way their story unfolds, the way that they are literally planetary minds orbiting each other, it just expresses a bigger story with far fewer small details to it. So in a way, they're doing the exact same thing, it's just on a much grander scale. Because, I mean, yeah, that's what the Nine are. They are simultaneously tiny and everywhere, and yet also massive and nowhere. It's kind of mind-bending to think about. The environments also morph in each encounter and break the mold of expectations each time they do so. The fungal grotto of Iatros is contrasted with the pristine research campus, where Apoptes has made its lair. It's all fantastic aesthetically, but it also speaks to the deeper realities of what's happening in each of these areas. It shows how the Ionians were more closely studying the Singularity, and it shows how the Vex are now manipulating dark matter in order to accomplish their own ends. More on all that in another video, but yeah, for the moment just know that it's incredibly complicated. I'll talk a little bit about it here, but it really does deserve its own video so that I don't just butcher all of it. It's absolutely at the heart of everything going on in the raid though, so yeah. The narrative progression of raid encounters is also a little interesting as well, because for the first time in years, we have a non-linear raid, just like the original Leviathan in Destiny 2 Vanilla. However, instead of proving our worth and growing fat from strength in order to face Emperor Callus, having entertained him enough, this time we're seeing a bunch of different Vex plans all working towards a similar aim, and we need to destabilize all of them. These plans all revolve around taking the Vex powers of time manipulation and applying them more to what can be gained from the death of 3 and the powers of the 9, dark matter, and, well, just a lot of other stuff. In possibly what is the most sci-fi loaded sentence I've ever mentioned on the channel, the objective in the raid for the Vex is that they are literally trying to manipulate timelines via the use of quantum entanglement and dark matter. Yeah, I promise I didn't just make that up, it's literally in the raid. Now, Destiny has had some raids that stretch their mechanical focus into theory or just into really hard sci-fi or just really hard science before, and, well, they've always felt like they're really densely packed, but nothing comes close to this raid. From the use of a chronon pickup, chronons being the smallest theoretical measure of time, to the Lord of Quanta being a boss, aka the Lord of the smallest measurable particles, I think. Flanked by bosses designated for waves and particles. I mean, the whole thing is a physicist's dream as far as deciphering the mechanics are concerned. They really went hard in the sci-fi elements of the Vex, and, well, it fits. It really suits them. A special note really has to go to Iatros though, the Wyvern boss that you will find, where if you go ahead and look up their name and skip past the cursory Google search AI results and ignore that garbage, you will find out that Iatros in Greek roughly translates to doctor or physician. With all of the Greek mythical references in the Vex, and the enemy nomenclature that they have, that shouldn't be surprising. But what kind of raid mechanics would a Vex physician or doctor revolve around? Well, the entire mechanic is all about a heartbeat. It's about a patient, and the patient is the Choral Vex. They are looking inward, and they're trying to figure out a way of improving their own reactions to dark matter, which we use partly to defeat them. The wipe mechanic in that phase is called an immune response, and the major kind of mechanic that flows throughout the entire encounter, it's all about heartbeats. It's brilliantly conceived, and I think it accomplishes the objective and shows off what the Vex are trying to do really, really well. It's another perfect example of what Destiny does really well, which is taking the mechanics of something and the lore of something, and then saying that yes, the two of them are absolutely compatible, and then showing that off. It's a brilliant Ludo narrative, and I love that that exists for us here. The entire encounter also demonstrates so well that the entirety of the Vex, whether they're the main consensus or Maya's Choral faction, are in some ways just like the Nine, both bigger and smaller than us, both present in front of us and also all around us. You see, when the immune response goes off, it seems to make it very clear that we are the viruses in the system killing the patient. However, in that moment where we're fighting against Iatros, we are fighting against a physical wyvern, and that isn't ever really lost in the sense of scale, but you also see your eyes slightly opened to the larger scale of the encounter in front of you. You can find really cool lore tidbits of how the ideas for ludonarrative mechanics work out and just present themselves really well, just in every single one of the encounters. But as far as the overall plans of the Vex are concerned, the major plan that they have for this particular area of the Singularity starts to take shape by the final boss. As it turns out, according to Maya Sundaresh and Chioma Essie, the Choral Vex are trying to digitize this area, using the powers of dark matter and the Nine more generally as their objective, and by dragging this place into the Vex network, they'll be able to do that more effectively. We also learn what specifically 3 was asked to do. We learn more specifically that 3 was commanded by Maya to trade the places of Earth from the past with Earth from today, which is not possible. The 9 are capable of pulling things through time, but only forward in time. Making something trade places is impossible for them, because they can't take something in our present timeline and send it back. So whilst they can pull Lodi forward, 3 couldn't make a trade. It couldn't send the current iteration of Earth back and switch it with the old one in the past. And so, that's part of the reason why Maya killed 3. But to study further the powers of the 9 and to find the location of the others amongst their number, the Choral Vex were taking that extreme step of digitizing this place. The final boss is called the World Line, and I believe that that is part of what they were indicating they were trying to do. They were trying to take this particular place's trajectory and digitize it generally, subsuming it into themselves. If they did this as well, their own powers combined with the powers of the 9 would have been able to be used to devastating effects. This is all thanks to quantum entanglement. To cut through all the jargon, essentially it'd be a whole new level of control over timelines compared to what the Vex normally do. If you entangle a piece of dark matter, the theory is that an equal and opposite paired or quantum entangled piece of real-world baryonic matter somewhere else in another timeline would also be affected. Let's put it this way. If you have an apple that's dark matter and it's entangled with an apple that's right in front of you on your desk that's real matter, again, this is not how this works normally, but just keep it in simple terms. If I crush the dark matter apple, your other baryonic matter normal apple in front of you will also get crushed. This is quantum entanglement. And if the Vex can do this across timelines with dark matter, you can start to see a measure of their power. Normally the Vex would need to enter a timeline in order to start changing it. With the technology and the power of dark matter at their disposal, they would no longer need to do this. Normally they spread their influence like weeds in the Garden of Time. Now, with this power they would start popping up wherever they please, with terrifying speed and efficiency. Combine this with Maya's maniacal desires, and you have a recipe for disaster. Keep in mind that the 9 are also somewhat responsible for Ikora Rey's resurrection and our own resurrection, for bringing Lodi through time, for engineering events in certain ways so that we would survive. I mean, for crying out loud, we learned this expansion that the entirety of the outer orbits of the 9 engineered the death of Gol, Orin's ghost. Their solution in order to do this was literally to start the Red War, to make sure that Gol would capture the Traveler and cut the light off from all Guardians. Imagine that kind of power in Maya's hands. Not specifically to cut off the light, but just to affect timelines like that so freely. And with the Vex's power intertwined with it, well, you can start to see why it would be very difficult to stop. Now, to be really clear, this doesn't make the Vex paracausal. There is no light and dark in that system despite the wording of dark matter. But to control dark matter and the Vex having control of time already, well, it would make a pressing threat that would mean that maybe our paracausal abilities wouldn't matter. The Vex can't simulate us accurately, but with a power like this and the ability to perfectly circumvent us, who knows what they might achieve? They might be able to perfectly apparate a goblin in front of a ghost just before it reses every guardian, take a single well-placed shot, and call it a day. That's just guessing, but, I mean, you're starting to see the idea. All of this would seem unbelievably complicated, and I think it would be way over my head if it wasn't for the implementation of Maya and Shioma's copies in the raid to help us out. To be more specific, these are copies of Chioma Essie.50 and Maya Sundaresh.87. These two deserve a video all of their own because their specific story starts off on Venus in the Golden Age, but it also got a lot of development in episode Echoes, where we learned about them during the Encore mission. Chioma in particular has an interesting story from before this raid because she's actually an escapee from Maya's experiments in the Nessus core. This lends her a unique perspective, and it also means that she is placed separately from both us and Maya 87. This leads us to the final raid dialogue that continues on our major quest, which morphs into a gambit between us and the two Ishtar researchers, an attempt to map the Vex network itself. If we can do that, then suddenly the billions of network simulations that we have to face off against are a lot less intimidating, and we might find a means of sabotaging the Conductor's plans or those of the normal, non-Choral Vex. There is one sad bit to this raid, which is that it continues the trend of raids having fewer lore tabs than their predecessors. We kind of bucked this trend with Vesper's Host and with Sundered Doctrine, but it is back now. To be really clear and really fair, I think if I did have to choose between the quest and lore tabs, I am torn, but the wider community consensus is certainly not with me. Everyone, I think, prefers having quests over lore tabs. My position, of course, as always, is why not both? But if it has to be a case of resources, well, I think it would be fair to say that this serves the lore to people in a better manner that is more utilitarian. This is a similar comment to what I had for Salvation's Edge. It was realistically my only real sad note about this raid. We only had a few small lore tabs, and the raid is an opportunity to expand on some of Destiny's biggest stories. I love that the quest exists. In fact, it's relatively novel, all things considered. But regardless, I still think that there's something that could have been done. And in all fairness to Bungie, this might just be a staffing thing. The actual quality of the lore in this raid is fantastic. But it's worth remembering that ever since the layoffs, they've been working with a significantly smaller team than they used to. Key talent has been lost, but equally, the work that's here hasn't let the bar drop. If anything else, I see the quality of the work having not slipped, and it makes me mad about the decision that was made to lay off certain members of the team. Now, I'm sure that Hazel and Rob would probably have been working on other bits and pieces of future content that's coming up, but man, I can't help but feel the weight of what we never got. Based purely on how good everything that's in front of us is right now, I wish so badly that we could have gotten those lore tabs. But I also can't fault anyone who is currently working on the narrative team because, well, yeah, there's fewer of them. And this is already fantastic stuff. They made a ton of great stuff in this raid and they didn't drop the bar. I just wish there was more of it, and I wish there were more members alongside that team, like there used to be. To be incredibly clear, this raid is still utterly fantastic. I can't help but feel like if there were more lore tabs and more stories attached to it though, that it could have been a really transcendent experience. I am starting to realize that Last Wish and Vow of the Disciple will probably take us a little while to get back to in terms of their additional narratives that they had. But also, for what it is worth, every bit of lore that is in here is good and matters. And if that's the kind of stuff we have to triage while there's a smaller narrative team, then frankly, I think that is still the right choice. So, with all this in mind, I think it has to be said that the Desert Perpetual surprised me, but in a lot of great ways. The overall take will be that this is a hard raid, and that's mostly what people will think of it going forward. But buried deep in its granular details, this is a raid that keeps pace with Salvation's Edge. The thing that it does best is that it makes the lore of the Vex interesting again. Compare this to something like Garden of Salvation, and you have a group of Vex that are conceptually interesting, but have a really flat execution. The most interesting thing at the heart of the raid is really the Dissenter statue and the Black Garden itself as an environment. Compare that to what we get here in Desert Perpetual, and the difference is pretty stark. These Vex have all got discernible purpose to their actions. They're messing with major story elements in a manner that's complicated, but also speaks to a deeper and more focused intent. And Maya, well, her fingerprints are all over the raid, and it reflects her greatest strength as a character, which is partly how uncaring and rash she is. But narratively, I think it shows the real reason why her character is there. She has given the Vex individuality. She has made them interesting individuals. And as a result, she has made them better as a faction to fight. They all have a purpose, and they all show off those purposes brilliantly in the Desert Perpetual. In my opinion, it's been 11 years since the last really interesting Vex raid. It's really great to have them back in a place where they're telling good stories again. And whilst this doesn't necessarily dull how brilliantly told the stories of Praedyth and Kabir and Pahanin were back in the day, it does still set a new bar. A bar that asks you to look at these theoretical concepts of fourth-dimensional beings, of quantum mechanics and dark matter and time manipulation, and say, what is the real connective thread here? And it is wild that they pull it off this well. Desert Perpetual is a triumph. It doesn't necessarily beat out Valve the Disciple in my mind as one of the best raids in terms of lore in all of its aspects, but it is definitely up there. And I think that it is something that the team should be incredibly proud of having contributed to. So, with all that being said, expect more raid lore videos from me. I'm going to be hunting with my team for the rest of the lore entries. We're going to be doing various challenges as time goes on, and I'm going to be bringing you more context from each of the encounters, all of the lore that goes on, the continuation of the raid quest, any lore tabs that we do get, and of course, the bigger questions and context of things at large. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and know that as per usual, your viewership has been quite enough for me. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and leave a like, leave your thoughts down in the comments, and if you want more Destiny content, hit subscribe and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. But as per usual, my name is Bife. Perodacia Arastra. I'll see you Starside.